taking the time today to learn more about two modules, important modules that we just released for VSDS. Sorry about that. We're going to give you a demonstration on the new iPad module that allows you to capture a VSDS electronic survey on an iPad device, and also our new hazard display system. And I'll let Jim talk about particulars around that. But as we go through the presentation and demonstration of the software, feel free to ask questions, and we'll certainly get to those and answer them for you. I'll turn it over to you, Jim.
Okay, thanks, Ralph. Welcome, everyone. As Ralph said, we're going to go through two modules for VSDS. The first one I'm going to go through is the iPad app, and then we'll switch over and go through the hazard display system. So for the iPad app, what I'm going to do now is switch over to a little PowerPoint that we have for the iPad app. So I'm just doing that now while I pause the screen. And there we go. In addition, we're recording this presentation, so once it's done, we'll put it on our website, and then we'll send you all a link if you care to download it. Okay, so we developed the iPad app for VSDS. It's a native application for the iOS platform. It'll run on a standard iPad or the iPad Pro. And we have a number of customers that are using iPads more and more throughout their entire company and for a lot of different purposes. So we wanted to develop something that they could use for VSDS as well. Now, if you're currently using a Windows tablet at your facility, you can use VSDS with our little briefcase module and run the full VSDS application directly on the Windows tablet. But VSDS is a Windows application, so it will not run on an iPad. So we had to develop an actual application or iOS application. And it is available in the App Store, the Apple App Store, and you can download it. Now, you won't be able to do anything with it if you download it, unless you purchase it from us, because there's a collection of web services that you have to install on your site that hook into the VSDS database and provide the data necessary to the iPad app so that it'll actually work. So there's no cost to the downloading the app itself, and you can have as many as you want in your facility. It's licensed as a site license the same way VSDS is. So our goals for developing this app were to provide comprehensive functionality so that out in the field, the technicians could capture virtually all the data necessary to begin the documentation of a survey in the VSDS system without having to use paper. The user interface for the iPad app is very similar to the user interface for the main VSDS Windows application. So there really shouldn't be much of any training required. There's a few little things that are different, but we have a comprehensive user guide and online help that would help you to be able to use the iPad app right away. So you're not going to have to go through a big long training program with your technicians. And lastly, as I mentioned, many of our customers are using iPads for a variety of different purposes, and many of them are shared. So your department might only have 3 or 4, and they're shared among individuals and so on. So the iPad app has a security function built in, so you have to log into the app in order to use it. So the logins are the same logins that are stored in the main VSDS program. So anybody that's authorized in the VSDS program itself using the security manager will be able to log in to the iPad app and use it. If they're not an authorized user in the main VSDS application, the login will fail and they won't be able to get in and use the app for any purpose. So we have that secured login. You have access to all the maps and templates that are in your main VSDS program. So you don't have to do anything special. As you'll see in a little bit, I'm going to actually demonstrate this live through screen sharing, so you'll be able to see it in more detail. I have a number of screenshots in the PowerPoint here, which I'll walk through first, but then I'll also show it to you live to demonstrate some of the interactivity there. So once you're cataloging maps and making templates in VSDS, you don't have to do them again for the iPad The iPad has a feature where it just downloads all of those maps and templates right into its own onboard memory so that you can use it. We also have a survey search capability on the iPad. So many times you might want to search for and retrieve the last survey that was done of a particular area you're going to go and do a new survey on. And you can search from the iPad back through the VSDS database to find the survey you're interested in. And then you can download that survey and then use it as a starting point for documenting your new survey. And I'll show you how that survey search capability works. So all the templates are downloaded, and you can simply create a survey based on a template, or you can create a survey based on a downloaded survey as I just described, or you can create a survey from scratch where you pick the map and put the symbols on it and fill in the other information and complete your survey that way. So you have the same 3 ways of doing a survey on the iPad as you have on your desktop. You can take pictures using the camera on your iPad, and you can put those pictures right on top of the survey map, just like you can do on the desktop. Working online and offline. The iPad app is actually designed to, essentially it's working offline all the time. So the only time you need it to be online is if you're downloading the maps and templates to the iPad itself, or if you want to upload the surveys that you've completed on the iPad, you want to upload them back to the server. So any other time while you're actually working with the survey itself, you don't need to be connected. So you can use the iPad anywhere in the plant. You don't have to have Wi-Fi to be able to go out in the field and document your surveys. You can create as many surveys as you want, and they just get populated right into a survey list on the iPad itself, kind of similar to the dashboard and the main VSDS application. And then when you're ready and you have connectivity, you can then just indicate which ones you want to upload and just upload them back to the server. So it's very easy to do. So here's the example screen of the iPad. And this is my familiar, many of you have seen me do these presentations where I use this backwash tank map all the time. So it's from my main VSDS application. And you can see here's the map, just like on main VSDS. You have the right-hand side with all of the pages that you have on the right-hand side of the main VSDS application. We have the toolbar across the top with the 4 different tabs for the different symbols. There's a button to add a new map, just like on the main VSDS application. You can add additional maps to your survey, or you can delete a map if you decide you don't need that one. And then a little difference here is in the main VSDS application, there's tabs across the top here, so you can flip back and forth from one map to another just by clicking the tabs. But rather than take up that screen real estate, because the iPad is smaller than your desktop, so we want to try to minimize how much of it we use up, there's just a drop-down list here on the right that lists all of the maps that you have in the survey. So you can have as many maps as you'd like in your survey, and you can switch between them just by using this little drop-down over here. Then you have all the other fields like you're used to, where you have date and time, and you can click the date button here and it'll populate it with the current date and time from the iPad. All the rest of the fields just like you're used to. The symbols are all drag and drop, and you'll see me do this with my finger, or you can use a stylus. And then there's a menu up here. It's on the previous screen, which gives you the ability to create a new survey and search for surveys, download the data to refresh it on the iPad, or upload surveys. And I'll show you that when we look at the system on the screen share. So I'm going to go to the next slide here. So here's a quick example, partial example of searching for an existing survey that you want to download to the iPad. So you select the survey search from the menu, and then it brings up this screen, which has 3 panels to it. There's a general information, a map info, and additional fields. So here, for example, on the general information page, you can search for a particular survey number. If you know the survey number that you want to pull, you can just type it right in here and click search, and it will bring it down. or you could search for words in a title or a particular time frame, a lead surveyor. If you click here, it'll bring up the list of lead surveyors, and you can pick from the one you want and so on. So when I flip over shortly and show the iPad through screen share, you'll see a little bit more detail because I'll flip to the other two bands as well. But it's very simple. And once you put in your criteria, you click the search button. And then as the next page shows, it then searches and finds all of the surveys that match the criteria you put in. So it'll give you a list, and here it says it found 9 surveys that matched my search criteria, and you just put a check mark next to the ones you want to download to the iPad. So you can download more than one if you want. Now, if you already have this particular survey, for example, already on the iPad, it'll be shaded gray. As you can see here, there's a little legend down here that indicates it. If it was already present, it'd be shaded gray, so there's really no reason to download it again, but it just notifies you you already have it. Then you just click the download button and it brings it right down to the iPad. Now, if you want to create a survey based on an existing survey or a template, you're going to get a screen sort of like this. In this particular case, I clicked Create Survey from a Template, and it brings up a list of the templates that I have available. It shows I have 204 templates. So you can scroll through the list and find the one you want, and you click the button next to in this case, the template you want, and click Create. Now, if you click View, it'll bring up a view, a preview of that template, so you can verify that that's the right template you want to use. If you're creating a survey from an existing survey, it'll have a similar list where it'll list all of the surveys that you've downloaded to the iPad and through that search function. And then you just indicate the one you want to use, click the Create button, and it creates that survey for you based on that previous survey. I mentioned that you can take a picture and put it into onto the map, just like you can do on the desktop. And it's very simple. It works just like it does on the desktop. You click the camera icon. You then click on the map. It brings up a little dialog box that asks you whether you want to take it from your photo library or you want to take a picture right now and then add that picture. You do the one that you prefer, and then it puts the picture right on top of the map just like it does on the desktop. And you can move the picture around with your finger. You can resize it and so on. Very simple. So let me just review a few things here, and then I'm going to actually, why don't I do this? I'm going to switch over to my other computer so that I can demonstrate a few things live. So I just have to, I have to do this through my Mac because I can't do the screen sharing for some reason on my Windows computer. So here we go. Okay. So there it is. Now you see, here's the app. So what you're seeing now is sort of a home page or kind of similar to the dashboard page from the main VSDS application. So you can see I've created 2 surveys, so they're in this list. And if I wanted to upload one or more of them to the server, I could just put the check mark here. And then when I click the menu, I could click Upload Surveys, and it would upload that one that I checked. It would upload that one to the server. But I may not be done with it yet. So if you don't check that box, then you can go back into it simply by clicking on it. Now let's do the survey search. So if I do the survey search, here's the same screen you saw before. And there's the fields where I could put in a survey number, so it'll pop up the keyboard and so on. And then I can fill out any of these fields. These are the most often used fields. So they're in the first group. Then if you collapse the general group and expand the map information group, then you could search for a particular building area, and then you could enter the values you want, and then click search, and it will find all the surveys that, see if I get any. So, found 2 surveys there. So I could indicate that I want to download both of them if I want. And then I could just click download, and it's downloading the surveys. They're already, now it just downloaded them to my iPad. So now I have those surveys on my iPad. And then if I go back here again and just click the additional fields, You can also use some of those additional fields like we have, or you want to get a list of all the surveys that were done for a particular RWP number, you could type that in and it'll give you that list, and then you could download from there. So there's that. Then creating the survey, as I mentioned, you could do 3 ways: from scratch, from template, or from existing survey. So if I did it from existing survey, you can see here's the list of existing surveys that I've downloaded, and I can use one of them to create a new survey. So similar to doing it from a template, as I showed you before. But now what I'm going to do is just open up one of these surveys that I already have done. And I'll open this one here. So I'm just going to click on it, and there, open it right up. So now here's the survey. There's a picture that I put on the previous time when I was working with the survey, and I can resize the picture and just move it around with my finger and put it wherever I want. Here's the survey header information. You can indicate the instruments you used. We have the extended comments field. You can even do attachments. And then, as you've seen, as you're used to with the main VSDS program, if you click and put a symbol on the map, it gives you your data field, and you can scroll across to the other fields in that little grid. And if you want to enter a value, you can click here and then put your value in. So I can put 2 in there, for example. Now let's say I want to add a dose rate symbol. So I select a dose rate symbol, made it gray there. And then I'm going to, this is sort of an auto save, so it's going to ask you after a little bit if you want to save it. So now what I'm going to do is you click and hold a little bit to drop that symbol on the map. And then I'm going to come over here and put a general area reading. And okay, I'm going to put it in there as a value of 2. So you can see it's really pretty simple. If you want to add another map, let's see, I only have 1 map in this one. So if you want to add another map, it'll ask you. And here's my list of maps. So I can, there's my backwash tank room again. So I could add that one. Click OK. And now I have my backwash tank map. And then my drop down now has, wants me to put a little symbol here. So there we go. Okay, so it's just saving the survey in between switching the maps just to make sure that everything gets saved properly. It's just kind of a protected little thing. So there you are. So we're pretty much done with that survey now. I can save it. And then if I go back, it's right there. So the last step would be to upload the survey, or if I wanted to do a download data, I could do that as well. So any questions on the VSDS iPad app? What I'm going to do now is see if I can switch back over. There we go. Switch back over to the main screen again. So I just want to run through this little summary slide so make sure we cover everything. So as I mentioned, this is a fully functional iPad app, and it's available on the Apple Store. So it works online and offline, allowing use throughout the plant. We tried to make the user interface as intuitive as possible so that everybody that's familiar with VSDS could easily pick it up and use it right away. We have secure login, username and password that gets authenticated, same as the main VSDS application, so that if the device is shared between multiple users, when they go to use it, they have to log in. Anytime you close the program and start the program back up again, it asks you to log in. So all you have to do is when you're done, just close the app on the iPad, and even if you hit the home button to go back to the home screen and the app is minimized essentially, when you reactivate the app, it's going to ask you to log in again. So the only time you don't have to log in is while you're using it, live. But anytime you minimize it, even by just clicking the home screen, the home button, it'll ask you to log in again. It's just a security issue. So we have that comprehensive search utility that allows you to download previous surveys that you can use as a pattern, a starting point for the current survey you want to work on. You can create surveys from scratch based on that previous survey or on a template. And you can take pictures with the iPad and overlay them right on a survey. And it works with both the standard iPad and the iPad Pro. Now the Pro is a little bit bigger, so it's a little bit easier to use with your finger. But you can use a stylus as well, and that's really probably the better way to go, because sometimes moving things around with your finger, especially out in the field, might be a little challenging. So that pretty much covers the iPad app. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, I'm going to switch over now, and next we're going to cover our hazard display application. So let me launch this here. Get ready to go. So I have a little PowerPoint, and I'm just going to go through a couple of slides with to kind of set the stage for what we're going to talk about in terms of the hazard display module. So, okay. All right, so here's the hazard display module. We've developed this in conjunction with Ontario Power Generation. They're one of our VSDS customers, and they wanted to have a simpler way to do a couple different things. They wanted to be able to display VSDS survey data out in the field on large touchscreen monitors, and also have it integrated with our GEDS telemetry software to display real-time data from area monitors, continuous air monitors, and for them, tritium monitors. Then they wanted to have the ability to annotate on the screen hazard measurements, radiation measurements that they make in the field during the normal course of activities in the plant, without having to go back to a computer and log in and into VSDS and create a VSDS survey that way. So as you're going to see, this application gives them the ability to do that. So let me just go through a couple of slides here. So the application needs to be able to display all the maps from VSDS. So again, we're using the maps that you already cataloged in the VSDS application. So you don't have to recatalog anything for this application. It uses all those same VSDS maps. It has the ability to display real-time data for area monitors, continuous air monitors, and tritium monitors. It can also display pertinent data from VSDS surveys, referencing the displayed maps such as dose rates, smears, tritium measurements, and air samples. I'll show you that as well. Provide a mechanism for authorized users to log in to the application and record hazard measurements. Provide a mechanism for authorized users to add, update, and delete those hazard entries, and have the ability to create an actual VSDS survey right from that large touchscreen monitor. We also provide the ability to create hyperlinks on top of the map, which could link to pretty much anything. So you could have a hyperlink link to a live video camera feed, open a web browser for, and display the live camera feed from anywhere in the plant, or display a document, or go to a particular web page internal to your company or external as you deem appropriate. So I'll demonstrate that as well. Now, the way we develop this application is if more than one computer on the network is displaying a particular map, and an authorized user logs into that the application on one of those particular workstations. Let's say it's being displayed at 5 different workstations across the site. Several of them might be large touchscreen monitors, and others might be desktop, people running the application on their desktop. So the authorized user logs in and creates a hazard entry and then saves it. Well, the application automatically refreshes itself about once a minute. You can actually adjust that refresh time interval. So once the user is finished adding the hazard entry on the particular workstation where they are, all of the other workstations that are displaying that same map will see that hazard entry in about a minute. So it maintains everything synchronized across the network. So it's very handy for that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize the PowerPoint presentation and actually work with the live application. So bear with me a second. All right. So here is the hazard display system application, and it's displaying the backwash tank room map again from VSDS, as you've seen in the previous slides. So I want to go through the layout of the screen here, starting with the upper left corner. There is a server application that runs, provides some services to the main desktop application. You can see a series of checkboxes here. So these allow you to hide or show some of the symbols, each category, like hazard entries or arms, cams, or tritium. Sometimes things are a little busy, and maybe you want to see the map a little bit clearer in the background. You can uncheck one of these checkboxes. It'll hide those symbols, and then when you check it again, the symbols will show back up. And that process of hiding any of these symbols will automatically reset after a minute. And we did that because, again, if you're using this on a large touchscreen monitor and you're in the view-only mode, which I'm in right now, I can't make any changes to anything. But if I chose to hide the area monitor symbols, and then I walked away and forgot to redisplay them, somebody might not realize that there's an area monitor covering that area. So the symbols automatically reappear after a minute. So now you see a series of symbols on the screen, and you probably noticed about once a minute, there's the screen like blinks a little bit. Now that's that refresh interval that I talked about. So it's just a little visual indicator so people can see that, you know, something's happening here every so often. So now I've got a whole collection of symbols. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about each of the different kinds of symbols here and then show you some other additional features as we go along. So these symbols here, sort of rectangular symbols, are from the GED software. So they're displaying real-time information from area monitors, in this case, ARM. We have a cam over here, down here in the lower right, and we have a tritium monitor in the lower left. Now, I don't have the tritium monitor running, so you can see the data is kind of old in that, from that display, but the other ones should be running. No, maybe not. Thought I had them running here. But, so anyway, these will they'll display the data for the area monitors that they're associated with. So setting up the area monitor can be done either through the GEDS application or through the VSDS application. And then the user can simply click on it and see the data. Now you can also display some history for the data point as well. So, and you notice over on the left-hand side, there's a color legend. So you can define the action levels at which the colors change. And here you can see them defined here. And then the color, the background color of the appropriate data point will change when the value reaches the action level that you've defined. So in this case, when the area monitor reaches a particular level, it will alarm red, it'll turn red. So those are the GEDS area monitor tritium CAM symbols. Next, we have the hazard symbols. So these are the ones that I talked about, and I'll show this to you here in a moment, that the authorized users can log in and annotate the map with these symbols. The symbols, there's sort of two parts to them. There's the compact display that you're seeing here on the screen. And what we try to do here is make them visually descriptive and small enough so they don't take up an awful lot of screen real estate, so you can have as many of them as you'd like on the map and it won't cover everything up. So you notice that they have up to 3 different types of little symbols inside them. So this symbol here is for gamma measurement. And if you put your cursor over the symbol, or if you click on it and click details, it'll bring up a little dialog box here, in this case, where it shows you this is a gamma working distance measurement. I made the measurement, and it tells the date and time when I made the measurement, and also I entered some comments for that particular measurement. And you can see it's green, so it's a gamma reading. It's less than 2 millirem per hour, so it's green. Now this particular symbol has a little bit more activity going on, and I'll do the details again. And you can see here, the detail dialog shows that we have a gamma, general reading for gamma, 1 millirem an hour. Then we have a Maslin, loose contamination reading 200 ppm. Then we have a airborne particulate long-lived of 0.1 mpca, airborne iodine of 0.2, airborne carbon-14 gaseous of 0.3, and then again the other information. Now what we did here, you notice in this particular symbol, we've got the general reading for gamma of 1. We have the circle, which is either a Maslin or a smear. And you can see this one is an S for smear, this one's an M for Maslin. And then we have the triangle for the air sample, and what we do is we put little abbreviations inside the triangle to indicate the type of measurements that were made. So in this particular case, we had a particulate iodine and carbon-14. This one we had a tritium particulate iodine carbon-14, and you can see this one down here is just particulates. So we tried to make it as compact as possible, but still to give you that visual indication. And if one of these was in the yellow or orange or red state, then the entire triangle would be the highest level. So it would be red, for example, and then you can click on it and find out what the details are. So that's the way that works. You see this particular hazard reading has 3 different gamma measurements. So if you click details here, you can see the general area is 1, then working distance is 2, and contact is 3. So that's how that all works. Now, the last set of symbols that you see, they don't have a little hazard box behind them. They're just sort of free in the air. And you also notice there's a blue grid covering this map. So these other symbols that you're seeing are data from previous VSDS surveys that were entered and approved. And the grid is a visual aid to help you understand how we're getting that data and how we're displaying it. So what we're doing, many of you are familiar with the VSDS program and how you can do the trend graph and how you can create the little viewport, little box on the trend graph. You can drag it around, and then when you release it, it trends the data over time by looking inside the box. Well, the grid represents something similar to that box. So in this case here, this particular grid, we went back through all the surveys that were done using this map. And we found the most recent data point that was inside this grid. It could be any data point, whether it's a smear, dose rate, air sample, whatever. And we're displaying the most recent one that was found on an approved survey in this particular area of the map. Now, in addition, on in the VSDS surveys, there's a flag in the general information section that's called Publish to Web Viewer. And that gives you that ability to if you have the drill down web viewer, for example of ours, when you check that box for a particular survey you're documenting, it makes that survey available for the web viewer. So if somebody is using the drill down web viewer and they get to that particular location and they click the button to view the survey, it's going to find the most recent survey that was marked published to the web viewer. Well, this application uses that same flag. So it's displaying in this, it found the most recent survey that had that box checked, the flag checked, and looked inside this rectangle or this little square here and found it had a smear. And it put the smear in this same location that it was in the original VSDS survey. And then if you hold your cursor over there, you can see it'll do a little tooltip, or you can click on it and it'll bring up a dialog box to tell you the same thing. So here the reading was 500 dpm per 100 square centimeters beta gamma, and it's a smear. And it tells you what survey it came from, when the survey was done, who did the survey, and as you're probably familiar with on VSDS, for every data point you put in, you can put in a position, some information about its position, and related to that particular measurement. So this particular one came from this survey 2017-1110. Now, if I move around the screen, here's another one here. Let's see where this one came from. That was that same survey, 2017-1110. But this one here is from a different survey. This was from survey 2008-10-13-1. So you can see how the timestamps on some of these surveys are a little odd because, you know, this is my test environment, so I have lots of surveys in here that don't really mean much, but I make them for demonstration purposes. But the point I'm trying to make here is that the data point it found in this quadrant was from this particular survey, and then the most recent data point found in this quadrant was from a different survey. So it's giving you a composite of the most recent survey data available across the entire room. Now, you don't normally get that from any one particular survey unless you're doing a comprehensive survey for a particular room. Now, if you do the comprehensive survey for a room, let's say you did one last Friday, then all the data points on here would be from that one survey. But if you did a survey yesterday for part of the room, this particular part here, let's say, and you determined that that was a useful survey to publish, then the majority of the data points in the room would be from last Friday's survey, but these data points would be from yesterday's survey. So now you've got a composite of the data from the two surveys. So that's the whole idea here of what we're trying to accomplish. Okay, so let's dive a little deeper into the hazard symbols. And I mentioned earlier you need to log in. So you click the login button, and if you're using a touchscreen monitor, you can simply click with your finger in the field, and it brings up a keyboard. And then you can type on the keyboard with your fingers. Or you can type on the keyboard of your computer either. So now the other thing I can do on my computer is I can just hit the tab key and go to the next screen, the next field here. Then I'm going to hit the login button. And it's logged me in. And you can see here that what's happening over here, it tells me I can click on the map to enter a reading, and there's a countdown timer running. And you can set this for however long you want. Most folks use 2, 3, or 4 or 5 minutes. And again, this is sort of a safety precaution, because if I'm working on the screen here and then I save my hazard symbol and I walk away and I forget to log off, it will log me off when the countdown timer expires. Now, I can switch maps by simply clicking the select map button, and brings up a map selection dialog box that looks pretty much identical to the one I just showed you here on the iPad app. Or what you can do is you just go to wherever you want on the map and click your finger on the map. So I'm going to click my finger right here on top of this post. Okay? And I'm going to create a hazard symbol. So then what it does is it brings up a dialog box where I can enter the information the readings and such that I'm entering for this hazard measurement. And if I click in these numeric fields, it brings up a little keypad, so I can use my finger and just type on the keypad to indicate the numeric values I want. Now you notice there's a column over here for instrument ID, and you can make this required if you'd like or not. I turned off the requirements here, and you just enter the serial number of the instrument. And then you can hit the tab key if you want and go down to wherever you want and put the other additional information in and fill in whatever information you need. You can use any combination of the fields that are on the form here. And then you can select the type of loose contamination measurement you've made. And if you did particulate, you can indicate short or long-lived, particular gaseous carbon-14. And we can adjust, this is configurable, so it can be adjusted depending upon the customer's needs. And then lastly, come down here to the comments field, and I can just type in here comments for this symbol, and then I can click OK. So as soon as I click OK, it's going to create that hazard symbol, so there it is. So it put the hazard symbol, the top left of the hazard symbol is right where I clicked on the map. So now if I want to move it around, I just click and drag and put it wherever I want. So I can put it over here if I want. You can notice that you can't drag it off the map there, so it'll stop when it gets to the end. So there it is. I put that hazard symbol on the map. Now, if I click somewhere else on the map, just because there's a little empty space here, I can create a hyperlink symbol. So I talked about hyperlinks earlier. This could link to anything. So you can use this drop down where you want to link to a camera, which is basically a URL, or open a file, or open a different map if you want to jump around a different map in VSDS, for example, or whatever you want. So here I have it set to URL, and you can put in I think I can just do google.com. And then, not sure if I need the GPS there or not. Yep. You just need to do the I'll make that a little simpler in the future here. So here we go. So, oops. There we go. So here comes Google. Here's Google. So you can have as many of these hyperlinks you want, and they can be anywhere you want. Now, back over on the login panel, the other thing that happens is when you move a symbol around or you edit a symbol, it'll reset that countdown timer. So we did that so that if you wanted to annotate a number of different hazard measurements on the map, you don't run the risk of it timing out on you before you get done. So it makes it easy to do, easier to use that way. And if you want to log, you're all done, you want to log out, you just hit the log out button. Now, if you want to create a VSDS survey, all you have to do is click the Create VSDS Survey button right here. So I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to click the Create VSDS Survey, and it just did that. And you can see it created one with 2020-319-1 is the number, and that dialog box will close automatically, so you don't have to worry about it. In a minute, we're going to flip over to VSDS, and I'll show you the survey that it created there. Now, the other thing you can do if you want is you can enable this button here that says Show the Most Recent VSDS Survey. Now, for those of you that have our VSDS Drill Down Web Viewer, this button is doing the same thing that the Drill Down Web Viewer does, like I mentioned a little while ago. When you drill down to your particular spot in the Drill Down Web Viewer and you click the button to show me the most recent survey for this location, it will search for, retrieve, and display a PDF of the most recent survey for that location. So I should be doing that here in a moment. That's not. Oh, here it is. So here it comes. I think I here it comes. And any second now we should see it here. Sometimes using the Go meeting, slow down the computer a little bit. So there it is. There's my survey. So there's the most recent survey thanks available for that particular map. So I will close that and mentioned I was going to switch back over to VSDS, which here it is, and I'm going to hit this button here, and it should refresh and find the most recent. There it is. So here is the 2023-19-1 survey that I just created from the other application. And you can see I've got it being called an HDS generated survey. And if I double click it, it will open the survey up and I can see what it generated here. There we go. Now, what happened here was it took each of those hazard displays and it created symbols, and it makes little composite symbols. And there's options in this. You can configure how big these are and whether they have borders around them and whether they have a little transparent background and so on. But the reason we did it this way was so that it kind of distinguishes it from normally entered symbols on the VSDS survey. And each of the components, you can see this one has the 3 parts to it. So it's got the 1 millirem an hour general area reading. It had the Maslin, here's a large area wipe, 200, and it had the particulate iodine carbon 14 in this, well, this has noble gas, but carbon 14. So, so there's the different pieces parts there. And these are snapshots from the area monitors, cams, and Trinity monitors that are being displayed as well. So if I just push this thing back down here again, this one was reading 91.6 when it took the snapshot, and so on. So it's embedded the snapshots of the ARMs, cams, and Trinity monitors you have, plus the hazard measurements. And you notice it doesn't take the other symbols from VSDS and like duplicate them in here. So those are just display only. So there you go. There's how you can quickly make a VSDS survey directly from the hazard display module simply by clicking that Create VSDS Survey button. Now, once it creates the survey, the button grays out. But if I move one of my symbols around or I add more symbols, it then re-enables so that I could create another VSDS survey if I want to. So that's how that works. And then when I'm all done, I can just click the log out button and it logs me out. And you can see the timer is gone now, and I can't move anything. I can click on things, but I can't, I can't drag anything around. But I can look at the details for that particular measurement. And here's the 2 readings I put in and when I put it in, and comments and so on. So that pretty much covers the hazard display module. So are there any questions I can answer for anybody?
Yeah, this is Jason. I have a question.
Hi, Jason.
Yeah, so will this show like actual postings, or like if I went out in the room and it says like radiation area or the room's a high rad area, / contamination area?
That's an excellent question. We had our last group ask the same question. We still have a little bit of work to do to add that functionality in, because as you could probably appreciate, if we're pulling data from different surveys, we want to make sure that the posting that gets displayed is the correct one for that particular, this particular composite survey, I guess.
Right.
So we still have to finalize that functionality. But
all right. So I have one other question. So let's say I wanted to, like, when we do surveys on our VSDS, we use the drill down function, okay? And I have a survey type listed as drill down. So when we want that to be going to the drill down for anybody to look at, they select the survey type as drill down. Is there a way that we could select this hazard display monitor to only look at, pull up data from the latest drill down onto the map, and then maybe create one other type of code that it only pull that up there, so it's only pulling, you know,
Sure.
data from the survey types that we want?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
In fact, you see this publish to drill down web viewer? You can use that, but if you prefer and you want to have some other types in here, like hazard display, we can easily accommodate any of those options you want.
Yeah, because I think we'll probably do that, because if you click the publish to drill down web viewer, it would override the other drill down, let's say map that someone did, right? And it would make that show on top if they went through the drill down menu to look at a map, right?
Correct. That's
okay.
Correct. It only pulls the most recent one. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, by being able to put it as a survey type, I think that would be valuable for us. And then needing having a posting on there would also be nice eventually.
Yep, we can do both of those. That's no problem at all. And what we'll do is there's a configuration file that goes along with the hazard display application. So we'll have properties in there, so you can put whatever you want in this list here, and then you can define them in that configuration file,
right?
So that they'll match up. So you have complete control over how you want to call it, how you want to label it, and how you want it to work. So that's no problem. Yeah.
That would be good. And then like one other final question is like, so let's say it is pulling data from 2 different survey maps to put on there, like however we coded that. And for example, let's say someone did a Maslin in one of the quadrants, and then we went in there, we deconned the room, and then they go in and they re-Maslin, but their Maslin are different quadrants, but the room is still clean. But we don't want one of those other old Maslins to pop up in the quadrant because it might show data that's not incorrect. Is there a way to make sure that data from a quadrant from another map doesn't pop into the new map just because someone accidentally put it in the wrong quadrant, you know?
Well, one of the things we do have in here is ability to define how far back you want to look for the data that you display as collectively, you know, composited onto the hazard display. So you probably could accomplish it that way. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking that because, you know, like when you do a Maslin, when we do like a Maslin symbol, you know, it represents a certain area, and someone on another survey map may have put it in a different area than this one, and I just would want it to pull up an old one if the area is no longer showing counts on it. The Maslins are clean, but we just have to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, well, if you did that, let's say you did it right here, right?
Yeah.
This quadrant here, and the last week's survey that it had contamination, but this week's survey, then you decon it, then you re-Maslin it. Then what would happen is it would find the most recent Maslin for this quadrant, which would be the clean Maslin, and that's what it would display. It wouldn't display the Maslin from the previous survey.
Right. I would just have to make sure that they changed the same quadrant where the Maslin is, because if the Maslin was in another quadrant, it would pull that one too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, good point.
Yep, that's all the questions I have regarding that.
Okay, good. Thank you. Those are good questions. Anybody else have any questions? What were you going to say? Go ahead, Jason.
I'll say I like the system.
Oh, good. If anybody's interested, please call Ralph Cervati or send me an email. You can reach me directly at 585-314-9753.